90 maps and a lot of sleepless nights later, the Midseason Madness is one for the history books as maybe the greatest tournament of all time. With a lot of underperformances, upsets, and lower bracket runs, I want to make a quick video going over each team in the tournament and my thoughts on their performance. Let's go in order of their knockouts, shall we? First, the London Spitfire. These guys had a surprising tournament to say the least. They took out Atlanta right off the bat, played the shock in a very close 3-1 before getting reverse swept by the Florida Mayhem. There are a lot of positives to look at here and also a lot of issues. Firstly, they showed off a good amount of flexibility. They can play all of the Ryan, Winston, and Sigma comps to a high level. Sparker, Boneback, and Hottie all had a great tournament. But again, there are some glaring issues I'll get to. First of all, London lacked a top-tier long-range hitscan player. Sparker does fill that role and he's very good. However, the fact that London never won an escort map this tourney is revealing. Sparker was just generally outclassed on heroes other than Sojourn by Kai, Kilo, and even Exy. Another issue is that they are a bit inflexible and predictable within maps. You know exactly what they'll run depending on the lineup. Boneback is in, it's Winston. Boneback out and Hottie in, it's Ryan. Poco in, it's Sigma. Teams with more flexible in-game lineups, like almost every other team, can easily work their way around to counter it. Their Ryan comps are also countered by Winston dive comps, especially Florida's, which likely pushed them into their weird comps in Oasis. London are a strong team. They are more well-rounded than people give them credit for, but they have a lot of glaring issues, and I don't rate them too highly. They just seem to have Atlanta's number in particular for whatever reason. Also, fuck you, Christopher, for that Sombra Lucio Moira comp on map 5. Jesus, what a throw. Next up is the Toronto Defiant. All said and done, these guys don't look half bad. They went 0-3 against Shanghai in a surprisingly close sweep, and they lost in 5 maps to Houston. There were a few good things to dissect here. Muse and Finale's dives looked very clean, the Heese was lease, and Charang and Twilight were great as usual. But like always, there are a few issues to dissect. Hisu, while he had a lot of great moments in maps, especially on Ash against Houston, he struggled against the Sojourns of Merit and Lip, which is understandable, but still a point against them. Finale's flexibility is also a big issue. He's popping off with a Tracer, but he needs to put out the Genji, Echo, and a few weather picks as well before I can rate him as top tier. Muse also has some issues with positioning, overextending, and being punished by a well-placed sleep dart from Iris. Yes, Iris is insane, but this is still a point against Muse. The team also just crumbles under pressure. On push especially, they had the momentum against them multiple times and had to be bailed out by Hisu again and again. But despite the issues, I think they had a strong showing on individual bases, and with time and a bit more cohesion, I think they can take it to the best. I do want to see more Aldo though. I think his hero pool is necessary if they want to find a lot of success. Finale isn't really cutting it off with the Tracer. Next up to Fuel. What a fucking disaster. They got ran trained through by a weak-looking Shanghai and beat down by a COVID-battered Philly. They won the least amount of maps in the tournament, only winning a hard-fought Kings Row against Philadelphia. To get started, this meta is awful for the Fuel. Doom is strong, and neither Fearless or Hanbin look great on him. Sojourn is strong, and Gurio was easily the worst Sojourn of this tournament. Seriously, him against Lip was hard to watch. Zen is strong, and Shio is an awful Zen. They just seem so uncomfortable and indecisive. They also kept forcing the weird Winston, Moira, and Lucio comp. I don't know, man. Not their meta, I know. But it was surprising seeing them be meta slaves this stage, despite them being able to define the meta by playing to their strengths last season. They seem so miserable, and I hope they can get back on their feet for next tourney. They still have potential, but they are just rush one-trick comps for now. Next up, Seoul. Dear Lord, how do you go from not only winning the kickoff clash, but also going 5-1 pretty easily in the regular season, unless you get destroyed by Spark and then lose a close match to the Rain, who just got beat down by London? It boggles the mind. Well, one culprit of this was Fitz. I don't want to sound like I'm scapegoating him or anything, but he did have a stinker of a tournament, getting hard diffed by Kai and Shy. Stalker was also pretty inconsistent, getting diff against Spark, but having a really good game against Rain. But ultimately, I think solve bigger issues. They seem to have forgotten how to play Overwatch. They truly are suffering from some bad coaching recently, which is a shame considering their obscene talent. Their macro was really bad against Spark. I do think Spark played exceptionally well, but Creative or Vendame were always getting separated from the pack and picked off. The Prophet Smurf dives were not there as much as they should have been. The point presence was really poor, and don't even get me started on the Atlanta game. Constantly putting Smurf on Sigma and Zarya on the first 2 maps, the really weird comps on map 5, where they seemingly did everything but put Stalker on the Sojourn, which he'd been diffing Kai up on to that point. Constant comp swaps when Winston is meta. They just seem to have reverted back to their week 1 state of this week, where they seemed unsure of themselves and didn't know what to play. The Spark game genuinely felt like Season 3 or 4 still, just Prophet trying to 1v5 everyone and sometimes Smurf. The second game was very winnable, but bad decision after bad decision added up and cost them. They were still a top 3 most talented team in the league, and we've seen them work their magic in the kickoff clash, though that was a great meta for them. The next stage will be a huge test for them if they want to come back. Next up is the Houston Outlaws. Yet again, their tournament run boils down to losing 3-0 to the Glads, beating Toronto, and then losing 3-1 in the next round of the losers bracket. Well, I guess they also beat Mayhem this time. Overall, they still look good. Messy, not great, but good. Merit is strong in the Sojourn, like top 3 NA Sojourn is strong. Dante is still sick with it on the Doom, and Pelican and Iris are doing Pelican and Iris things. I don't know, man. They confuse me. And this meta, in theory, fits them really well. Dante's Doomfist is great. Lasso and Iris are great on the double flex. Pelican can go ham on Genji, Tracer, and Echo, and Merit is top tier on the Stojan. But why do they struggle? Firstly, this is tournament specific, but Lasso was fucking awful. I'm just gonna say it. He was decent for his first 3 games, but he cost the team 2 maps against the Rain due to his over-aggression and just being stupid in general. Maybe that's an overreaction, but his aggression is an issue with his team and has been. Pelican's Tracer also isn't up to par with the rest of the league, and he does get picked off first a lot and seems a bit disjointed, hurting the dive. Piggy continually struggles with the Winston and has never even tried the Hammond. It seems like the team wants to be really aggressive, which would make sense as to why their Doom comp fits a lot, but their poke comp, which in theory should be very good, falters, and their dive is faulty due to Doom not being able to be run 100% of the time. They're probably 4th NA right now, but their weird playstyle will prevent them from joining the likes of Shock, Glass, and Rain at the very top of NA consistently. Though Houston will continue to farm lower tier teams. The upcoming Dripker Queen meta can definitely prove interesting, though. I think it'll be good to them. Next up is the Florida Mayhem. Despite having a massive stinker of a series against Houston, their reverse sweep against London, who had some momentum going, as well as their utter dogfight against Philly, they proved they were still up there somewhat. Let's look at the positive first. Actually had an insane tournament. His Sojourn has greatly improved in his other picks. Someone looked great. Back on his signature Winston pick, RuPaul looked greatly improved as well after not really impressing me in the qualifiers. Their dive is clean as ever, dominating London on the rush comps. Someone's Doom looked better as the tournament went on. And they generally showed good macro plays and point pressure throughout. There are just a few issues with the team that holds them back from being top tier, though. They definitely have some weird comps. They forced Lucio Moira for the first 2 maps against Houston and got absolutely rolled. Surprise, surprise, when they went back to comps they were actually decent at, they looked very good. They also tried mirroring the run on LIJIANG against London and using the same Farrah comp against London that Atlanta tried and got rolled. Overall, some questionable comp choices. Hydron also didn't really have the best turning. Luckily, Xe is fucking insane, but his Tracer and Sombra were not great. But ultimately, I think Florida just lacked the star power of other teams. Xe had some big plays, but in the era of Overwatch 2, we were seeing teams pull fight wins out of their ass just due to having their DPS pop off, despite being a man or 2 down. How many times did Philly win a fight just due to MN3 or Zest? Compare that to Mayhem, who usually collapsed after a first pick. They also have issues with flexibility. While they can play other comps and look great at them, they only become top tier on that Winston comp. Overall, they're an upper half team, but if they want to surpass Dallas and make the top 5, their DPS need to prove they can carry on the level of Shock, Lads, Rain, Houston, and all of APAC. Next up, the Shanghai Dragons. These guys just look weak. They seem to have regressed into more or less a one-man army. Their success depends entirely on how much Lip can shit on the enemy DPS. Against Hisu Gurio, can't contest Lip too well, 3-0. Against Kaya proper, they fall apart. Lip did play consistently well throughout the tournament, but really Dragons just played so scared and barely pressured the payload. Against Shock especially, they kept trickling in and dying one by one as proper broke their ankles. They really just seemed back at square one. They looked lost at times. They did play better against the Rain than they probably should have. They did play better against the Rain, but they probably should have won that series. They just looked messy and most of all scared. Other than the overall team, I think Lip and Izayaki had good performances and Fate was solid. Slide was all over the place. He had a great Tracer against Toronto, especially against Finale, and he did do a good job murking Venom, but other than that, he did not impress. Lee Jae-Gon especially did not do great. He died first a lot and had questionable positioning. Overall, not the worst showing, but they do have a lot to work on. Hopefully with Genji back in the meta, they can go back to their kickoff clash performance, because this was just sad. Next up, the Hangzhou Spark. These guys blew me away, honestly. They looked phenomenal. Despite their somewhat early exit, they smashed both Fusion and Soul, took the Cloud to the brink, and then lost to Fusion, who they smashed 3 days earlier. Never changed, APAC. No, but these guys were great. Shai put up unbelievable performances on this ocean, like Roll-Star MVP level performances. He diffed everybody. Alfie was also on his Rookie of the Year grind set, leveling up massively on the Tracer and having his usual dominant performances on Genji and Echo. Irony and Soup Eric were incredible as well. They seemed unkillable at times. I can't complain too much, but I'm going to do it anyway. Bernard played well, but he was a clear weak point. His ball is better than I think it has any right to be, but he was still diffed by Bellisria, Reiner, and Fury on almost all his heroes. I do think his synergy with Alpha Yi could have been better as well. The final nail in the coffin, though, is there's the port line. I know I praised them a lot before, and they did play very well, but ultimately I think a big reason they fell short at the end was their inability to play Ana Zen, which I think most would consider the optimal comp. Overall, I think they're very strong, and had they just improved on a few things, we probably could have had them as champions, or at least in the top 3. I mean, they were so close to beating Glads. Next up, the Philly Fusion. Before I say anything, I just want to say how incredible they've been. They get COVID a few days before the tournament starts and have to play separately while they quarantine and while sick. They still have an incredible lower bracket run and get 4th. If that's not peak Fusion, I don't know what it is. But these guys were great. M3 and Zest continue to be a top 5, pushing top 3 DPS duo on a good day. Bellisria and Fury are really living up to their potential, and Fixed and Aim God leveled up a ton. There are a few issues prevalent throughout this tournament, though. Philly really rely a ton on their DPS line to carry. The support line does get picked first a lot. Their ult usage is downright terrible at times. Bellisria had a great turning, but he still has a lot of weird decision making. But Philly can be proud of this run. They really did play phenomenally, and hey, they're clutch now. They can actually win map 5s. Good job. Probably the most fun team to watch this tourney. So that's for Roll-Star. Let's go. Next up, the Atlanta Reign. Holy shit, what a run. They knocked out 3 out of 4 APAC teams. They just love ruining entire regions, don't they? But they play out of their minds. Kai is slowly getting into the Roll-Star conversation, even MVP. He diffed pretty much every APAC hit scan insanely hard. He slapped around Fitz, Merit, MN3, and even Lip. Venom is slowly becoming one of the best tracers in the league. He was incredible despite some sloppiness. Hawk is as good as ever on the Doomfist and has slowly been leveling up his Winston. Ultraviolet and OG continue to be a top-tier support duo. OG really impressed me in this zone as well. The entire team is really just phenomenal as a unit, and it's so well coordinated. Everyone is where they need to be at all times. Everyone on the team has the potential to make a big play. Motherfucking Kai out here pounding like no tomorrow. Obviously there are issues. Nero has been lackluster on the secondary hit scan pick on Circuit, and frankly a bit lackluster on other picks. Hawk's Winston is still a big weakness, and the reason they struggle on Hybrid and Escort occasionally. And ultimately, pound for pound, they're weaker than the top 2. But these guys are scary in playoffs, and I do think they'll continue to improve this meta. Thanks for proving NA over APAC, guys. Next up, the runners-up, the San Francisco Shock. No real complaints about these guys, aside from a few things. They had a clean run through the upper bracket, but ultimately fell short in the end. Proper is definitely Rookie of the Year, and anyone who says otherwise is biased. Sorry, but he's number 1 on stats on Tracer, Sojourn, and Genji, the 3 most important DPS this tourney. He's a hard carry for the Shock, and puts them on his back time and time again. Honestly, I think he's MVP as well, unless Shock turned Garbo next tourney. Sam has massively leveled up his Sojourn. Kilo suck it to other hitscan greats like Ons and Ons again and Lip. Kaluj and Mikey were insane all weekend. Wish we saw more Kaluj in the finals, but he was crazy. Finn and Violet continue to be the best double flex support line in the league. These guys were absolutely insane, and the fact that they were competitive with the Galads primarily running Doom Winston really says something. My only real complaint is, what the fuck was that grand finals, Krusty? Why put Finn on Lucio and Violet on Moira? Why push into Glad spawn when you guys almost have the map? Why make Kaluj run Winston for the Eichenwald defense when Diva Comp made Ike their best map? Why take the Gladiators to Gibraltar, which is maybe their best map, when you guys dominated on Circuit? Why did Shock throw so hard at multiple points on the Glad's Dorado overtime offense? It makes no fucking sense. I have to make Glads with a better team now, but the first 3 maps were a study on how hard a team can throw. The fact that they almost ran it back is more impressive than almost anything else in this tournament, quite frankly. They also have continual issues with over-aggression and over-committing. Bin had very questionable trans, and overall, it's very common to see one of the Shock DPS or tanks get caught out of position and pretty much just die by themselves, pushing them back. It's part of what makes them fun to watch, and I think it does exceed a level of confidence that is not there for a lot of other teams, but they do take it way too far a lot. But overall, a very strong showing from this rookie team. They'll only get better now that they have not only tournament and finals experience. I just hope next meta isn't this weird Junker Queen meta, because that's not That's pretty much just the perfect meta for Glads. Who is our next team? What can I say? The Glads are the best team in the world. Kevster is fucking insane. Reiner is a Rookie of the Year frontrunner alongside Proper. Shu is still the best flex support in the world. Funny Astro was fucking insane as always. Skewed had a few poor maps, but was overall very good. And Ons and Patty were just godly, especially in finals. Their synergy is the only thing that can really stand up to shocks. And their playmaking on all fronts is off the charts. Their map control is ridiculous, and their dives are probably the best in the world now that Soul crapped out. They're just so good at setting the tempo and overrunning the opponent. I still feel like they have a bit of questionable decision-making in high-pressure scenarios, though. You could see a few spaghetti noodles on the floor in the finals before Ons carried them past Dorado. Patty also isn't phenomenal in my opinion, and their comps with space are a weakness. But they're simply the best in the world, and are the heavy favorites in the Summer Showdown and the championship overall. Thanks for watching. Remember to hit like and subscribe for more. I upload nearly daily Overwatch League content, and I'm trying to hit 1,000 subs by the end of Season 5, so any subscription helps greatly. Thanks.